Well, howdy do, buckaroos. So excited to thanks, Large, for getting in there. We took a day trip to Rogers, Arkansas. There's some pictures from Fish City Grill, which is where we started to get some lunch. It's there on the Pinnacle Hills Promenade, I believe they call it. That was a plate of oyster nachos they gave my wife a sample of, and the Bike Rack Amber Ale, and that's what I ate. The, the honey chipotle shrimp tacos, and those were awesome. From there, we went to Ozarks Beer Company, where I started with the Belgian Golden Ale.
And how you doing, buckaroos? How the heck are you? It's a little dark in here. I hope you can see me. I'm having the Belgian Golden Ale at Ozarks Beer Company. It's the first time I've been here. It's an interesting joint. You've got you walk in a door. It looks like a warehouse, and you walk in a door, and then there's where they've got the taps, and you've got to come in another door to come in and sit down. It's basically you see all the tanks. It's just basically a warehouse where they've thrown some tables in here. It's interesting. 6.3% this Belgian Golden is. They say Pilsner malts and noble hops. They tell you to look for aromas of spiced apples and pear. Describe it as dry, moderate hops. It is an interesting joint. I'm going to pan the camera around. See if we can see the tanks up over there. It's basically a warehouse here. It's interesting. So anyway. You do get the aromas of the spiced apple and pears they suggest. You even notice a lot of that spiced apple on the flavor as well. You do feel the bready Pilsner malts. The noble hops crisp it up at the end. It does finish moderately dry. Of the fruit notes that I get in the beer, I get early on. And maybe slightly in the finish as well. Throughout the middle is really where you feel all those big, this great big Pilsner malts. That's nice. They've got 6 brews on tap, so I'm going to do one of each. I haven't decided at this point if I'm going to do, when I put them together, do just video for each beer, string them all together for one at the Ozarks Beer Company. I think I'm probably just going to put it all together and do one long one. It's an interesting place, though. It wasn't what I expected, to be honest with you. I'm going to probably just wander around. They're having a baby shower here of all the baby shower at the brew pub. So anyway, if I pick up anything else on this Belgian Golden, I'll be back. Well, how do you do? I'm still working on that Belgian Golden. I want to get back to it because as I let this warm a little bit, they mentioned spiced apple and pear on the aroma. And as I've let this sit, as I've drank a little bit, although I did notice some of that earlier, I'm noticing it more now. It's very big. It's very apparent. I would like to think I could have picked those flavors if they didn't tell me. It's that noticeable. But that spice is also apparent on the palate as well. You really feel those spices. And I said earlier I was feeling it mostly up front and slightly in the back. And in the middle is all those Pilsner malts. I like to change that slightly. Now that I've let this warm again a bit. You do feel it a bit up front. And all those Pilsner malts in the middle, as I said. I'm noticing that big fruit more on the back end than I was noticing right away, or as it was colder. Now I'm really feeling all of it. I mean, the spices are very apparent. The spiced apple, the pear, those things they tell you to look for. There's almost hints of coriander in there as well. It's an interesting beer. I mean, the Belgian Golden, kind of depends on what you're in the mood for. It's not really the weather for it here. But again, they've got 6 beers on tap. I'm gonna do one of each. This is the lightest, so I wanted to start there. I'm gonna work my way up the food chain. I'm gonna go to they have an APA and an IPA. I'm probably gonna do the APA next, then jump to the IPA. Then I think they've got 3 stouts. I believe that was on there. I don't remember exactly. I know there was a cream stout and a coffee stout, and I can't remember what the other one was now. But there you go. This is a nice beer. It's just the place is rather different. It wasn't quite what I expected. You're basically kind of drinking here in a warehouse. You've got a... I kind of went blank there for a second. Maybe they've got these gates set up here to block the public off from getting into the brewery area. But it's, hell, I think I could jump in. I want to get up there. It's just an interesting setup. And like I said, they're having a baby shower here today as well. So it's kind of a different thing going on. So, hey, I'm going to be back with the next beer, probably the APA. I'm John Beer Whisperer. We'll talk to you later.
And on to beer 2. I had their APA, which was very interesting. It's what most would call a session IPA. I'm glad they just called it an APA. It's brewed with rye malt.
Well, howdy do, y'all. I'm back again. This is beer number 2 at Ozarks Beer Company. I'm having their APA. They call this Session-esque APA, 4.2%. So depending on where you draw the line, it's something that could be on session. Well, that's up to you. I think I forgot to mention that Belgian Golden Ale was 6.3%. It's $4 for a 12-ounce pour in the tulip, as you saw. This is $4. Everything, 5 out of 6 beers are $4 a pour, whatever container they happen to come in, except for the smoked porter is $5. I mentioned on my the last part that there were 3 stouts. I was wrong. There's only 2 stouts. The cream stout, the coffee stout, the other is a smoked porter. I knew there was 3 dark ones, but there you go. Got this APA, it's 4.2%. It's $4 for the non-oc pint 16-ounce pour. So there you go. Oh, very nice indeed. So it's nice. The first one was 6.3%. You got a 4.2 beer, so it's nice. I can kind of relax. Use this one as a palate cleanser, and I'll jump to the IPA. Then I'm going to work to the 2 stouts and the smoked porter. I'll probably do the smoked porter last. I was just talking to somebody at the counter that was drinking the smoked porter. They said the smoke is very big, so you're going to like it if you like smoked beers. If not, the smoke is big, it's not settled. So I kind of dig that because I like the big smoke. There's some light fruit notes on top, mixed with some subtle spice. Wow, that wasn't quite what I expected. Wow, that's interesting. There's some big flavor going on for a 4.2 here. Again, and I want to be clear, they call this an APA and not a session IPA, because the flavors that I'm getting here are what a lot of breweries are calling their session IPA at 4.2%. So I kind of like that. I've talked to many of my beer friends, 2 in particular, the Brew Guru, John the Brew Guru, who is one of my favorite beer reviewers, and then Rhode Island Red, who both kind of feel that the session IPA really should be called APAs. And here I've got a brewery that actually calls what most people would call, well, what most breweries would have named a session IPA. Well, they call it an APA, and I think they're probably correct. Okay, the flavor's interesting, and I'm probably going to make some folks scratch their head with my early descriptors here. But you ever ate juicy fruit gum? Well, actually, I haven't in about a decade. But those are the kind of the fruit flavors that I'm getting early. But then it breaks into, as I said, there's fruit and subtle spice on the nose. Well, the fruit's bigger and the spice isn't so subtle. There's white pepper-like notes along with possibly some cardamom going on or something else I'm feeling. I'm not sure what hops they use that would impart those flavors, but wow, I'm not sure hops that they are using, but there are hops that will impart those flavors is how I meant to put that. It's a very interesting APA, I gotta tell you, and I'm glad they call it an APA and not a session IPA. For that, I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy. Oh, it's very interesting. So I'm going to let this warm a bit because I may get some more flavors here as I let it sit. They've got it coming out very chilled out of the tap. So, hey, I'm trying to beer whisperer. This is a very interesting joint. There's kids running around or having a baby shower. It's very interesting. Well, how you doing? Drop the camera as I was starting. So I didn't look at the board descriptor before I started the first video until just now. And I thought, well, let me take a look. It is brewed with rye, which is why I noticed that those spicy notes. That would make sense. They tell you to look for notes of grapefruit and fresh cut grass. You certainly get the grapefruit. I don't know about the fresh cut grass. I've never ate grass. I couldn't tell you. But I still stand by my earlier descriptor of juicy fruit gum. Because that's what it feels like. It feels like juicy fruit gum up front, and then you've got those I'm going to say rye spice character, but that's why I was getting the white pepper and the cardamom from that rye malt. So there you go. It's good APA, and again, 4.2%. It feels like a lot of folks session IPAs. I mean, it does. That's what it has the same body. It's got many of the same flavors, the same contrast between malt and hops, that light body, those hops at the end. I mean, it feels like what other people are calling a session IPA really is, a lighter American, a lighter APA, basically. So there you go. Hey, I'm John the Beer Whisperer. That's probably all I'm going to do on this beer. I'll be back with the next one. I might be back with this one. Who knows? Well, howdy do, buckaroos. Hey, I'm still at Ozarks Beer Company. I sort of accidentally ran into one of the brewers here, Brant, and I finished I had the golden ale first, and then I had the APA. Now I'm having their IPA. It's 5.3%, so they're not trying to do a great big crazy IPA. They're doing more of a, I'm not going to say session, but more of a sessionable IPA. Let's say. They look. Their descriptor on their board says look for tropical fruit notes. He said they use Nugget and Bravo hops in this thing. The aromas are very fresh and clean. Oh yeah, Are you drinking the IPA?
I got the pale.
The pale, okay. There's a finish on this. The IPA is very dry. You do feel some of those tropical fruit notes, not in a huge way, not like many are doing them. It doesn't feel like that tropical fruit salad IPA. It's more subtle. It's a very likable, drinkable IPA. I don't think it's going to be a hophead's favorite because they're going to look for more of that punch. What you've got here is just a beer that's just nice and easy to drink. This would be a perfect barbecue or picnic beer because it would kind of complement everything. It's very nice. So I'm going to let this warm a tad, and I'm going to be back with some more notes. Maybe. And how you do, buckaroos? Well, I'm back again, and now I'm on to the stout end. So they've got 6 beers on tap. the Belgian Golden, an APA, an IPA, 2 stouts, cream and a coffee, and the smoked porter. So I'm having the cream stout here, which they describe as they describe it as notes of chocolate, coffee, and dried fruit. 5 roasted malts are softened by the addition of milk sugar. So it is a true cream stout. The nose is gorgeous, actually. Big dark chocolate notes on the nose. There is some coffee. At this point, it's probably a little colder than it ought to be, but the coffee notes are subtle at first. Dried fruit, I'm really not feeling yet, but I'm going to let it warm up, and I may get some on the nose later. I'm going to take a drink, though. Oh, wow. That's something special right there. That's a good cream stout. It's texturally textbook. I couldn't say that again. Although the chocolate is more apparent on the nose, at least in this stage, the coffee is very apparent on the palate. Or on the flavor. Big notes of coffee. It is slightly sweet, but not cloyingly so. I don't know what hops they use at the end of this. It's just enough to kind of dry her up and clean it up at the end. Yeah, I really feel the coffee most predominant. There are notes of chocolate, don't get me wrong, but we're on the nose, I'm getting mostly chocolate and subtle coffee. On the flavor, I'm getting a whole lot of coffee and very subtle chocolate, with just hints of that milk sugar right at the very end. So, hey, I'm going to let this warm a tad. I'm going to be back with some more later. I'm coming to Williamsburg, hanging out at Ozarks Beer Company. I'm having a time. No, I actually ran into a brewer, so I was talking with him, and it was he was very friendly, and it was just great. I love when I can walk into a place like this and just start yakking at people. How do you do, Buckaroos? This is Alfred Hitchcock thing on you. So here's the thing. I said early on, 5.38% cream stout, that it was a little cold, but on the nose I was getting mostly chocolate with just subtle hints of coffee. But on the flavor I was getting mostly coffee with subtle hints of chocolate. And now that I've let it warm a tad, the coffee and the chocolate has balanced out more on the nose. It's pretty even. Oh, wow. And the flavor is pretty much the same now. Again, where I was getting one or the other. I was getting mostly chocolate and coffee on the nose, and then mostly coffee and chocolate on the flavor. Now it's really balanced on both ends. It just needs to be warmed up a bit. They've got it coming out very cold out of that tap there. It really needs to sit for about 20 minutes and get closer to, at least 50 anyway. Oh, excuse me. But it's a fine cream stout. And early on, I was noticing more of that milk sugar residual sweetness on the finish. I'm not noticing that as much anymore. It is a very creamy beer. But at the end, what I'm noticing most now, because I was noticing really that sugar early on, what I'm noticing most now is kind of this kind of bitter dark chocolate finish. So it's a very nice cream stout. This is Tom the Beer Whisperer. Hopefully I can be back with 2 more. Well, howdy do, Buckaroos. I'm running out of memory again. Darn, I hate when that happens to me. It happens when I'm out of town and I'm not allowed to, or I'm not able to upload the videos one at a time like I usually do. I've strung a bunch together here from our trip to Rogers, Arkansas. I'm at the Ozarks Beer Company. I'm having their coffee stout, which is their cream stout that they use cold brewed single farm Guatemalan coffee, 5.3%. And although having their cream stout, the cream stout has a lot of coffee notes as it is. Adding the coffee, I can imagine. Yeah, it's coffee, baby. It's coffee, baby. Oh yeah, good God. Yeah, that's like drinking a cup of cold coffee. Carbonated cold coffee. Yeah, it's nice. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh, that finish was nice. Big coffee early on, big coffee all the way through actually. A slightly bitter finish. You do feel some of those cream stout notes all the way through because of the added coffee. You do feel some of that chocolate from the cream stout, but it is very, very subtle. It's on the back end. It really helps in that slightly bitter finish. You do feel some of the lactose, the milk sugar there right at the end too. This is a very nice coffee stout, if you're a fan of the coffee stout. Because let me be honest with you, this isn't a subtle one, so if you love coffee, you want to taste coffee in your coffee stout, well, this is the one for you. Hey, I'm John the Beer Whisperer. Still got one more beer to go through, so I'll be back. Well, how do you do, Buckaroos? This is my last one at Ozarks Beer Company. It is their smoked porter. It's 8%. They don't give any tasting notes on it. Oh. Now, I talked to someone earlier who described it as very smoky. She said she really likes that big smoke, but if you weren't crazy about smoked beers, it wasn't going to be for you. There is a lot of big smoke on the nose. 8% smoked porter. The aroma is gorgeous. You get notes of smoke, chocolate, and coffee, and some earthy notes as well. Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah, you do feel that smoke malt in a big way. Again, I'm getting hints of chocolate. I'm getting hints of coffee. I'm also getting some earthy notes. There's also some spice-like notes that I'm finding very interesting. Oh yeah, you know what? I mean, this is beer 6 out of 6 beers, so my palate is probably not as fresh as it ought to be to taste a beer like this. But it's a good beer. I'm not going to get in depth. Other than to say Ozarks Beer Company, yes, for beer geeks, it may not be, on the path where you're heading in Rogers, Arkansas, but it is one that beer geeks need to find. They are doing some mighty fine beers here all over the Midwest. It's not just on the East Coast. It's not just on the West Coast. You got to get to the Midwest because there's a lot of hidden beer treasures here you got to find. I'm at Ozarks Beer Company, Rogers, Arkansas. You need to be here too.
And my last stop on our Rogers, Arkansas trip, we stopped into Foster's Pints and Plates. It's local. I didn't realize at the time when I first walked in that they actually brew some of their own beer. The first beer I had there was from Bentonville Brewing Company. It was Northwest Arkansas Pale Ale. But I did have a Foster's brew. It was their strong ale. Both beers are fantastic. I could spend all day at this place. I hope to get back there again. This time the Beer Whisperer.
So I wandered into Foster's and I ordered a Northwest Arkansas Pale Ale from Bentonville Brewing. It's not what I've had before, which is why I ordered it. Earlier today I visited the Ozarks Beer Company. It's a very interesting beer. I don't know any stats on it or have any info on it whatsoever because it's not actually on their menu, but they happen to have it here. The aroma is very interesting. It's very earthy, almost grassy on the nose. There are some fruit notes. It's pleasantly dry and appealing on the palate. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I've had way too much to drink today to give you detailed tasting notes. That shit just ain't going to happen. What I will tell you though, basically, is that you get some very fruit notes early on and in the middle. It dries out very nicely at the end. There are some slight, maybe white pepper, possibly coriander, some kind of spice notes going on. Spice notes, not spice. You see what I'm saying here? Anyways, I don't want to go long, but hey, I just want to do a short video for this beer at Foster's. Yeah, I like it enough where if I was to find it somewhere else, if I could find a six-pack or something, I would pick it up. It's very likable. It's a very interesting place. They got a lot of beers on tap. It's very loud. It's got a sports bar kind of vibe about it. I heard the food's good. I'm not eating at the moment, but I'm just having a few beers. They got a lot on tap, so I might have more later. So there you go. I'm John the Beer Whisperer, and we'll talk to you later.
Need to get back to this place at one point. There's a lot of beer that they brew there, and that strong ale was very nice.
So I didn't realize when I walked in this joint that they brew some of their own beer.
Yeah.
This is their strong ale. It's
Yeah.
8%?
8%.
You know the IBUs on it by any chance?
I don't know the IBU on that one. I might actually have it. The IBUs are 42.
42. Thank you very much.
Yeah, these are all of the ones that we have right now. Minus the red ale.
Wow.
The red ale is going to be replaced, so that's a little description of all of them.
Nice. I didn't realize they had their own stuff until I was pointing out there's tanks right
It's a cool room. During the day when our brewmaster's here, he takes people on tours and stuff
Oh,
like that.
nice.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well,
You guys ready to order? Okay. We're going to wait for your table. Yeah.
this is 8%. It's incredibly deceiving.
It is. It's a very smooth beer.
Wow,
for
it is, yeah.
Yeah,
There's some
I think
nice
that
spice notes on
We're
it.
going to start distributing our beers, kind of like the other breweries. So we'll see how that goes.
This is nice, yeah. There's almost like spiced apple notes on it.
Yeah.
Am I the first one to say that? Have you heard that before? Spiced apple. Okay. Yeah, y'all ever had those? Get the jars, those red apples, spiced it. Yeah, that's what it tastes like, doesn't it? All right, I'm glad I'm not the only one. And what was your name again?
Laura.
Wow. Oh, this thing's beautiful. My space is getting low, man, so I'm going to stop now. I'm trying to beer whisper. Yeah, Foster's Pints and Plates. This place is awesome.
And that was our trip to Rogers, Arkansas.